I'm curious as to what you make of Leinster's out half picture for next season, because I think it would be objective fact that if we're looking at things in a wider picture, that for Leinster to have four very talented out halves and a clear logjam there isn't great for the overall health of the game in the country, where other provinces are just struggling for numbers in that position, or at least struggling for players who are ready to play proper URC or Champions Cup rugby. So, do you have any potential solution there?
From what perspective?
From the perspective of there being obviously a bottleneck at Leinster, what would you like to see happen for Leinster firstly? And do you
But
have
I mean,
a more holistic view?
if you were to ask me the question as the Irish rugby fan versus the Leinster fan, it's a different answer. So as a Irish rugby fan, I think at least two of that depth chart need to be moved on, or have a decision to move to a different province. I think one to Ulster, one to Connacht, and playing week in, week out, and getting to at least give themselves a chance to make the step to be Ireland's starting out half, because only one spot available in Leinster, and there's four of them that are good enough to play that position. Um, from a Leinster point of view, if we can keep them all, why wouldn't we? If you have that much talent, like if you could, if you can swing it and keep them happy enough that they want to stay, you definitely don't want to strengthen the other provinces, and you want to have the best possible squad with as deep as you can get in each position. So it makes no sense to get rid of them and move them on. But from an Irish point of view, and from those individual players' point of view, I think for the likes of Frawley, if he wants to be there, if he wants to continue getting in a lot of squads and picking up caps and everything like that and doing what he's doing, he's going to have an amazing career if he goes down the route he goes. If he's like, I want to be the best fullback or the best 10 in the world, he needs to be playing week in, week out. So whether that's nailing his post or nailing his flag down with Leo and saying, I want to be this position, don't pick me unless I'm in this position, or else, I'll have to go somewhere else to play that. That's a decision he'll need to make. But I don't think necessarily he will make that decision, but I'm just saying from the point of view of seeing him reach the highs that I think he can reach. I think he needs to be playing the same position week in, week out so he can master it. And that goes for the other two, Harry Byrne and Prendergast. I think for them to become the world class talents that I think they can become, they need to be playing in the big games like Ross Byrne is, and the only way they can do that without maybe a change in selection or a big drop off in form from Ross Byrne is a move. So that's going to be a tough decision for those players to make. The other provinces can't necessarily poach the players, so it'd have to come from the top down of the IRFU or the players themselves, because Leinster aren't going to be handing out top quality players just to spread the wealth around the provinces. It'd be a decision from the players or from the top down. So there's your answer from all the kind of different angles.
That sounds to me like if Leinster were to meet Toulouse again in 12 months' time, for argument's sake, you would see Ross Burns still as being the incumbent at number 10 starter.
Yes.
Why?
Why not?
Okay.
Like, and I'll go on this, right. So Leinster, he has steered the team right to a 1 point European Cup final loss, a draw, before, or when he just got off the field, and they're drawing going into the final few minutes. They've been almost there for since he's gotten the team from Johnny, and he's run it so well. Yes, they haven't gotten silverware, but I don't necessarily think that it's been him that has been the reason why they haven't gotten silverware. Now you can argue he hit the post in the Viva final. If he gotten that, they would have won the game. But again, you're not going to be perfect in every game. But I don't buy into people compare him to Johnny. He doesn't take it to the line as much as Johnny does. No, he doesn't. He's a different kind of player. But what he does off the field in leading this group and on the field, I feel like he is more than good enough to lead this team to silverware and has almost done so in over the last few years. But I'll accept the criticism until you have the medal in your back pocket. Everyone is entitled to their opinion of calling for change. But from playing with him and knowing how he makes that group tick, I don't see a reason why he should be ousted for his performances recently.
It's such a fascinating one. There's three issues there, right? Ross Byrne, number one. I personally think he's been scapegoated since the final again. This has happened regularly. I get that he's not the same as other out halves. He's not as exciting in attack, basically, it boils down to. And people, in my opinion, overweight that slightly now. But there's important factors aside from running at the line that can win you games. Like, look through his performance in the final. I've heard people say, "Oh, he had a terrible game." That's just not true. Like, his contestable kicking was exceptional. They won back the ball nearly every time he kicked it. Some of his passing was really delightful. He puts Porter into a gap at one stage, really nice delayed pass, and hits Porter late. They nearly score off the back of that. Probably should have scored off the back of that. Another one where he whips to Porter on the edge of a kind of potted three. Porter plays out the back, and James Lowe has a half break, nearly connects with Gibson Park inside. Either of those chances are finishes. Now, there's plenty to talk about the lovely passing range that Ross Byrne has. I thought he called plays well. I thought the decisions that they made often were the right ones, but they just didn't execute well.
And kicked all his goals.
He kicked all his goals, yes. I should have said that. His line kicking, I didn't think was at its best, to be honest. He was short a few times, but again, that happens. So that's the first issue there. Like, he's the number one, and someone has to come and take the jersey off him, and no one has been able to do that at all, in my opinion, yet. The second issue is I think Sam Prendergast actually does have the potential to do that, and I don't think it's a really long-term thing. I think he can accelerate very quickly because he clearly has quite an elite level of talent that's better than most players of his age, and that's why he's played more rugby than most guys in Ireland of his age. In fact, probably the most of anyone of his age group, say in school or 20s or even the academy. And I know it's probably not quite as much as he wants, but Leinster have helped to develop him. And again, last weekend was a really good performance. So that's what I think. And my understanding is he is going to be in Leinster next season. I think that's brilliant because I think he can go and push Ross Byrne for that number one spot, or maybe Kieran Frawley if he's in that mix as well next season. And the third one then is that you are left with four out halves again. And from an Irish rugby point of view, it is a centralised model. The ideal situation is that one of those out halves, even if it's for a season on loan, would go to Connacht, who are in need after JJ Hanra's injury. But you can't, as we've seen so many times, you can't force players to go. You can encourage, maybe strongly in some instances in the past, and still the player has to make that decision to leave. All these guys, as far as we know, want to play in Leinster. Harry Byrne, he's the obvious one who would come to mind now, because if Prendergast goes up the pecking order, he comes down. And Harry Byrne probably played more minutes this season because Ross had quite a long injury spell. He probably got more starts than he otherwise would have. But he just, he's re-signed with Leinster. He loves playing in Leinster. I presume he loves living in Dublin, and it's his home province, and that's where he wants to be. So you can't just tell him go to Connacht for a season and you'll have a great time, because he also has to look at it and think, I've played twice in the Six Nations this year for Ireland. If I go to Connacht, there's no guarantee that just because I'm playing, I'm going to be in the squad. In fact, it might actually be the exact opposite. I think someone like Kieran Frawley will have thought that in the past. As far as I know, he's had chances to go to at least one other province, but he's been right to stay where he is. He's playing for Ireland now. He's playing in all the big games with Leinster, maybe off the bench. That's not what he wants, but he's making progress with Ireland at the same time. So there's so much tangled up in it. And it'll be interesting to see if it ends up with one Leinster out half in Connacht next season. It reminds me of obviously 2018 when Joey Carberry went down to Munster. It was him, Johnny, Ross Byrne, Frawley was there obviously, Harry Byrne in the academy probably at that stage. So you've kind of got that logjam again. And in that instance, we know that the RFU did strongly encourage Joey Carberry, but still he was the one who, he could have said no. Ross Byrne said no for a move to Ulster, as did Joey, we understand, but he said yes to a move to Munster. And but for injuries, I actually think that would have been a brilliant move, really. He was excellent at stages when he wasn't injured, but he was just really unlucky. So yeah, it's a fascinating one, Gav.
It is, and you're so right to flag, Mer, that you can't force anybody to do anything. And I know when this topic comes up, I've heard people say in the past, probably just in random conversation, that like the IRFU maybe it would be in their interest to be more authoritarian in a way, and sort of have a system in which they would be able to kind of issue a decree that a player must go or else. But you can't do that within the framework of existing contracts. You would have to introduce that kind of a system a little bit further down the line. You can't say to a guy with 2 or 3 years left on his deal at one place of employment that they have to move to another place of employment. It just can't be done. Legally, it can't be done. Morally, it probably shouldn't be done. So let me ask you this. How do you see this actually shaking out? It sounds as though your understanding is that Sam Prendergast will stay. Is there a chance that Harry Byrne goes? He definitely won't want it. Like to me, he'd be the least likely to move almost. So is this just a situation where we're going to be talking about the same thing again next year, and Connacht meanwhile have to scramble to try and find somebody else to cover for JJ Hanrahan?
Yeah, possibly. They have permission to get an NIQ in at out half to cover as well. So that seems to have been granted already. So they're definitely on the market looking at those options. I'd say there must be still hope that something could happen. And I don't have any insight into whether Harry Byrne would be interested, or whether actually it's been presented to him in that way. But it would make sense, wouldn't it, if he did leave. But as you say, personal decision. He just re-signed with Leinster. He's had a really good season this season in terms of getting minutes and game time and making progress, playing for Ireland twice, which is massive for any player. But no, you definitely can't force someone. And just because it's rugby doesn't make it any different. Like, some people like living where they are around their family. It's the same as any job in that regard. You've got to consider many factors other than just the specifics of the job, and maybe opportunity to do more of it somewhere else. So I wouldn't be surprised if Connacht end up with an NIQ short-term signing at out half.